So to come back to the question of learning. So how do we integrate past experiences into what is happening now in the present moment? So it, and I would like to break it down to a very a simple question of our perception and movement. So we could go in many philosophical discussions about that, and there are written books about that. But I would like to break it down to simple, a simple movement, and this when we start to move, when we move, before we move, we create an image of that movement. So before I even, and we know, like before I lift my arm, like my postural organization is preparing my body to lift the arm, and that is happens to the change of tone. So if you with me make this little experiment that you, let's say the right arm, just for simplicity. So if you rest your right arm on the desk or on your thigh, and you only think about to lift your arm, so you're not lifting your arm really, you just think about to lift it and observe what happens. And maybe you notice that there is a tonal change in your arm. There's something changing in the tone. There's some kind of anticipation of the movement. And then you let go of that tone. So you imagine or you think about lifting your arm without lifting it. And then you let go of that. And then as a second step, try to lift your arm without activating the tone. So instead of okay, now I think about, imagine to lift it and my tone is rising and then I move, I let go of the tone and then I move my arm kind of, it's almost like I would say like an undercurve, like you go instead of moving your arm like in an overcurve, so you raise your tone and then you move your arm, you let go of that tone and then you move your arm from that undertone. And then just notice what happens. And then starting this play where you bring in back in the imagination, the thinking of moving the arm, and then you let go of the tone which comes with that. And you let it spread in your shoulder, in your neck, the interesting thing is for me that when we move, we get information about the movement, and we get information about the relationship between the body parts, and we get information between our bodies, the form I am taking, and the environment. So I'm approaching something, I'm moving away from something. Maybe my hand comes closer to my body, my hand moves away from the body. And I can let it spread also to the other side and in my spine. And maybe you can notice also that this familiarity to move, which we are all used to and we take so much for granted that we can move in this way, is also because we can anticipate our movement. So we kind of mapping not only like that's like embodiment doesn't only mean I have an image and representation of my body, but it has also an image and representation of the space around me, the space of action around me. So where can I reach? Where can I go? Where can I lean? I have all that already in my image included, so I can anticipate and measure distances. I can measure weight. So this idea in body mind centering, for example, that we are created through a relationship, the relationship of the cells to each other, the relationship of my form I have with other forms, my relationship with the space. So it's not me in the space, but I am created in that relationship with the space, with the things around me. And are created by the relationship of my hand to my mouth, my eyes to my hand. And I am created by these millions of relationships between cells, between tissues, the movement between organs, the sliding of the organs. And there is a knowing which is, it's like a pre-conscious knowing. It's like a primitive knowing, which recently in the last years have been many studies about animal cognition. So cognition without a brain and cognition of cells or mold or bacteria, kind of knowing, learning, repeating, carrying memory. anticipating, passing it on to the next generation. So there is a lot which is in the spaces in between. It's not necessarily in the DNA, but it's in the cytoplasm, in the fluid around the cells and around, or in the cells around the nucleus. And plant intelligence as well, Jan writes in the, very much, yes, absolutely. And this is the most, so I mean, I keep talking, and while I'm talking, you can still move and still feeling the field, the field where you are moving, and what the environment where you are, what that affords, so what that allows. So it's not only now in this moment, but we carry also the memory of how we grow up, or what we did 1 hour ago, or what we will do tomorrow. So that it's part of what this imagination is about, is about connecting, creating bridges between past experiences and the present and the future. So we imagine what we are going to do later, but we also imagine what we have done 1 hour ago or 10 years ago. And it's not, it's, I'm using the word imagination more in the Jungian sense, to that it's thoughts, emotions, feelings, sensations. So it's not just visual. So yes, we have this primitive kind of cognition, awareness, consciousness, which is created through the relationships, through the movement between cells, tissues, organs, body parts, and approaching, moving towards and moving away in the field where, in the milieu where we are embedded. And then take a few more minutes just to bring that to a little pause. Just noticing how you feel right now. Let's make another little, I would say, experiment exploration. So if you think about or imagine a movement, a very simple movement. So you don't do it yet. You just imagine a simple movement. It can be just like grasping something, or any movement. And then again, notice how your body gets ready, already imagining that movement, how your body gets ready to make that movement. And then move. So in not letting go of that tone or anything, just you imagine the movement, then you get ready to move, and then you move. And then you just very, very slowly, you repeat that movement. And as you slowly repeat that movement, so even if you imagine a fast movement, now make it slow. It's maybe just a gesture, a simple gesture, or like a turning. Maybe you just turn to one side, or you look up, or so something very simple. But you do it a few times very, very slowly, and just let whatever other images, and with images I mean, like I said, in the Jungian sense, so like the image can be a thought, can be an emotion, a sensation, a memory, can be also a visual image, can be something, just something which is connected with that movement, some association, even something. As you slowly repeat the same movement, what is surfacing? And that's something very interesting. I'm playing with the movement memory. So it's a very particular kind of memory, which sometimes in technical term it's called procedural memory, because it's like the memory of a movement as it is happening. So you slowly repeat the same movement a few times, and you can stop in between if you want, and then reverse it, and just allow things to surface. Thoughts, memories, images, maybe even a smell, or even a situation. What does this movement remind you of? So that reminds me of when I was a few days ago picking a flower, or stopping in the movement and thinking about something. So, and how these associations you have, and this is something which I really also I took in very, very deeply, the idea of active imagination from Jung. So how it's not just any associations, but engaging with that movement, and inviting other images to come, to arise, come to the surface. And then maybe out of that, out of these images, maybe other movements arise. So it's not staying with the same gesture, with the same movement, but allowing inviting other movements, and maybe movements which also change the imaginary, the complex around that first movement. Maybe there was something maybe not so pleasant, or maybe something you were reminded, or it was evoking something and not so pleasant, and now you're just changing that, inviting other kind of movements or flow. So it's this idea that the imagination is connecting, is making a bridge with the past, and bringing experiences from the past into the present. And as you're moving, as you are projecting your movement also to the future. So what am I going? So what I'm going to do? What out of that flow between a previous experience and the present, how am I going to move in the next seconds, in the next minutes, and maybe projecting myself for tomorrow or for later or for in 1 week or in 1 year, or it's like a contemplation, a constant contemplation on the flow between the past, the present, and the future. And if there is a difficult experience, where the movement, which often happens in difficult experiences or in trauma, that the movement is frozen, is reduced for a moment, the gesture is interrupted at some point. And so instead of trying to resolve it on a cognitive level, we have also the choice to resolve it directly on the movement level, or even on the cellular fluid level if we decide to work with the tone. So we can, any difficult experience we bring from the past into the present, or which is kind of hijacking the present moment, we can think about how do I play with the tone and with the movement, with maybe finishing a movement which has not been finished in the past. And it just be with that, with whatever is important for you in that moment. I was thinking maybe to explore that a little bit with yourself. So since we don't have, we cannot do really partnering here. If you put your left hand on your deltoid, so like on this part, so the fleshy part of your shoulder on top of the humerus, and then again think about or imagine to lift your arm. So yeah, maybe let your arm hang on the right side, and then imagine to lift your arm, like to make this movement. Imagine, and then notice what is happening in your deltoid. Just again, feel like the pre-movement in the deltoid, and then slowly start to lift your arm and let it down. And then let it hang again, and then feel, do you feel in your deltoid something going down, or like down to your hand, or do you feel something going up into your shoulder? Just like this pre-movement, what you felt, do you feel it like going into your fingers, to your hand, or does it go up into your neck? And feel it through the touch of the deltoid. And then again imagining the movement, and you go with the direction. So if the flow goes towards your neck, you go like this, If it goes with your towards the hand, you bring the shoulder a bit down and then lift it. So what is your preference in terms of pre-movement? Is it going, when you lift your arm, is it going flowing into your hand or it flows into your neck? And then do the opposite. And just notice what feels more easy, more comfortable. If the flow goes towards your neck or the flow goes towards your fingers. And that's what in BMC we call that feeling currenting. So it's the deltoid is a big muscle which facilitates the lifting of the arm if it is currenting down towards the hand. If the flow is towards the shoulder, it contracts. It makes a pre-movement of contracting the shoulder, which makes it very difficult to lift the arm. So it's again this question of what tone do you feel, and can you release the tone? So if you feel like the deltoid is contracting up, can you release the tone and then lift the arm from the undertone? And notice how that very simple movement of lifting your arm is not just like mechanically lifting your arm, but it is something where it lets your shoulder kind of melt into the arm. And it travels through the clavicle, through the sternum, through the ribs, into the spine, and even your pelvis and your lower body can participate in that. With this kind of flow from your neck over your shoulder into the arm, through the muscle, through this awareness, this subtle awareness of the tone. And how that creates a relationship with the space. So it's like going into the space. And if you for a moment just do the opposite, that you are, like we say in BMC language, currenting up, currenting with the deltoid, is a completely different relationship with the space. And then just hang or rest your arm and compare it to the other side. Just see how is the other side. How is the other shoulder? Now we do the opposite. Now we imagine a difficult situation. You imagine a situation today, yesterday, last week, last month, a few years ago, whatever comes to you, a difficult situation, and evoking that memory of that situation. Notice any tonal changes in your body. And then release that tone. With this previous experiences of lifting the arm or thinking about lifting the arm, and with the experiences of letting, allowing that flow, that currenting into the periphery. in the difficult experiences you had where you might feel a contraction or a withdrawing, or you feel like maybe an interruption of movement, and how also a loss of relationship with the environment. You kind of withdrawing in yourself, and how can you again opening the chest, opening, allowing that flow into the arms to again to maybe complete a gesture or a movement which has not been completed. And maybe you can start to differentiate more between the planning, the tonal changes to get ready for movement, and then the movement. So in a way, what's happening between the imagination and the movement? What is to kind of to tease apart a little bit that from the idea to the tonal changes to prepare the muscle for movement and then to move, and how that chain is affected in difficult experiences, different situations, in thinking about a difficult situation, imagining, also imagining, oh, tomorrow I have to talk with that person, tomorrow I have to speak at that conference. So also in the anticipation and in imagining a future event, we also have these tonal changes which we can address when we have the awareness for them. And then just take a time to do what you need.